Hi guys, hold on, I need to park better so you can see me better. I'm very thrilled to be back. How was the holiday season? I hope you had an amazing time and that you spent it with those you love. Well, maybe you don't know me. My name is Clara and I'm a Spanish girl that basically would love to be living in the UK. And that's why I've decided to do a bilingual channel in English, as you are listening to me talking right now, and in Spanish. You can select which video of which language you want to watch. Basically, I always post 2 videos weekly, more or less with the same content, so you can actually hear or listen to my rambling about books. And maybe if it's not the same content, I will make sure to put subtitles on it or something like that, so you can actually watch it anyway. And this week, as you may probably read or guess from the title of the video, I'm going to talk about the books that I've received not only over Christmas but during December, but it's mainly a Christmas book haul. There are some of the books that I'm going to mention that are only available in Spanish, and because it's a book haul and I haven't read it yet, I don't know the level of English that, or the level of Spanish, sorry, that it's required to understand it, but I will do my best to give you all the information that you need, or maybe you can look up for the publishing companies, but I will try to make it as exciting as it can be, okay? Let's start with the books that I've received in December but not during the Christmas season. This is the Penguin English Library edition of Howard's End by E.M. Forster. It's very funny because I don't know much about this book. I know that there's a film of the 90s with Emma Thompson starring in it. But what drew me to this book was actually the BBC, I think it was BBC, I'm not sure, the newest version of the classic, the TV series version of it, with Hayley Atwell as the main character. You know I love Hayley Atwell. You know that I'm a huge fan of the Captain America movies and the Agent Carter TV show, even though I only could watch one episode. But I love the character of Peggy Carter because it was the character that introduced me to this talented actress. So when I heard about the TV show, the TV series, I decided that even if I've been toying with the idea of reading this classic, it was the time to actually read it. And I loved this edition. I love the Penguin English Classic, Penguin English Library editions. I actually own another book in this collection, inside this collection, which is North and South by Elizabeth Gaskell, that I haven't read yet, and I feel very bad about it. But this one in particular tells the story of the Schlegel sisters, a pair of sisters who belong to the new social class known as middle class, and they get to know another family, another members of the higher class, like the almost noble kind of class. It's a high class. They are really wealthy, which are who are the Wilcoxes, but also members of the like lower class, the worker area, the worker class, which are the best. And from what I know, this is a story of social classes, social conflicts, and what happens when members of one one part of the society mingle with others. As far as I know, Forster did an analysis of English society when the middle class appeared and gained force, and what that meant to the other two classes. And it's using two very independent sisters to make the portrayal of such change. I don't know much more, but I really want to read it, and I really want to watch the TV show after reading this novel. And again, this is in English, so you will not have any issue picking it up. The next one is called La Reina Negra, like the Dark Queen, by Llanos Campos. This book is a Spanish book about, I don't know much actually. I think it's set in Japan by the looks of the cover actually. I came to find this book in particular because when I visited my former work colleagues, I was asking them for books that show a strong leadership and a strong leadership strategies. They literally put this book in my hands. I already heard about it because they, in a previous visit, they told me that I was going to love this book. That this was actually what I was meant to read for, like, forever. They know my taste. They know how I am, and they know that I would love this story. And they basically gave it to me, and I'm very thrilled. I'm very thrilled as well because the format of the story, the format of the cover and the illustration of the cover, it is not how this publisher company normally works. I mean, I've seen several covers of this publisher company, of this catalog. I know the catalog very well. I know that the tendencies of cover design, and I love how they try to break the mold every single time. Every single title that they acquire, either national or international, if it's international and they cannot afford to have the original cover translated, they love to do something like breaking everything they've done before, breaking the concept that the readers have of the original cover, making it their own. And this is a national author, this is a Spanish author, but I love how they have break everything they've done basically, and this is a demonstration of power. This is basically, in my eyes, this is a demonstration of fierce and strong leadership. Not only because they told me so, but because you can feel it. And I love how the cover has different textures. So if you touch it, you have this kind of velvety spine, but also you have this kind of symbols that you can actually like go around with your finger. I love it. I love this, and I love the fact that it's hardcover but it's not heavy. Going into the books that I received over Christmas, you may have to know that for Spanish people, Christmas is a little bit longer than the proper English countries, English speaker countries. We have, some of us, although I think it's very general rule by now, have, as you do, the visit of Santa Claus on the night of the 24th to the 25th of December, but we also have the visit of the three wise men, who are three magicians that visit children from the night of the 5th of January to the morning of the 6th. Therefore, as with Santa, when you wake up on the 6th of January, you will see your house full with presents. Basically, you will find your presents near to your favorite shoes, which is the tradition. You normally leave the shoes that you want to mark as your own for that night, so they know where to place the presents. The second tradition that happens in January, this visit of the three wise men, is actually in our culture is the biggest day of giving present to one another, to receive present, that is. And it's normally when you receive all of your presents, even though we normally only have one day to enjoy them. But yeah, that's how we do it here, things here in Spain. We eat a lot of sweets that day as well, a special kind of cake. But these are the books that I mainly received on the 6th of January, because it was the Three Wise Men Day. Having said that, I have to apologize for the change in light. My two spotlights that I normally use to film when I film in the evening are broken. So at the moment I'm using the sunlight to film this. That's why probably you will notice the light coming out or coming in depending on the clouds and depending on the movement of the sun. But I think we can manage with this, don't you think? Okay, there's no intermission here anymore. Let's talk about the books I received for January presents. These are two books that I am really thrilled about, that belong to this genre that you know that I'm enjoying very much, which is Dark Academia. You know, this kind of twisted group of friends who studying in elite university, they do something really, really wrong, really, really morally wrong, and everything goes downhill. Yeah, that kind of genre. I started this genre and I love it. With if we were villains, that if you follow me on Twitter mainly, you have suffered me raving about this book for months. But I know that the most important, or one of the most important books in that subgenre of the thriller, or that genre itself, I'm not very sure, is actually The Secret History by Donna Tartt. We translated in Spanish, we translated as The Secret, only that. So this is the Spanish version of The Secret History, El Secreto, which is a quite chunky book. And as with We Were Villains, I know very little about this book. I know that it's a story about a group of friends that study in a very elite university, and they study classical language like Greek and Latin, and they have a professor that they are really, really connected to. And there's one character in particular that is new to the school, and somehow he ends up being part of this group of people that are very, very clever and very, very pretentious. But he feels that even though he doesn't belong with them, he feels drawn to this structure of classes, this dynamic of friendship that they form. And something goes terribly wrong, and everything basically starts from there. I don't know, I'm really, really thrilled of Donna Tartt's first novel, which is this one, and I really want to see how special Tartt's style is, because everyone is loving it so far. And on the same line, I decided to pick up Gentlemen and Players by Joan Harris, which is also a Dark Academia book, but in this case centered in a boarding school only for boys, only for young male. And in this case the students are very, very immersed with linguistics and the vocabulary and the language itself. And they have a professor that is supposed to be a eminency, a very, very important professor in this field. and at the same time the school is having, I'm not sure if financial issues is the proper word, but it's having trouble, so something goes wrong as in the secret history, and everything basically develops from there. How I managed to pick Joanne Harris' novel? Well, you know me and you know that I love to do research, and I follow the author of If We Were Villains by, yeah, I told you that. Emel Rio, the author of If We Were Villains, she, a few months, I think a month ago, she published in an online magazine or something like that, in an online blog about books. She published an entry where she explores less known but equally good dark academia novels that are as good as Donatar the Secret History, but maybe they're not so known. And she mentions Joanne Harris' novel, this one in particular, and I loved the idea that she placed in my head. She described it as the Dead Poet Society, but darker and more twisted than the original film and the original book, which apparently which apparently the Dead Poet Society is also a dark academia book, but this is like darker and more complex. So I decided to follow her advice and picking it up. The last 3 books I'm going to show you are Aunque llueva fuego by Beatriz Esteban. Beatriz Esteban is a Spanish young author who I know that she wrote contemporary. I'm not quite sure about in which genre I should place this, because I'm not quite sure what it's about, really. I'm the worst booktuber that there is, but I love the story behind how I got into in contact with the author and this book. A few months ago, I don't know how, Beatriz Esteban Twitter appeared on my feed on Twitter, and I remember that she was sharing either a quote, an aesthetic of the characters of this story, or both. And I remember that it was by the time I was learning how aesthetic works, and I love it. I love aesthetic when they don't give so much away and they are very, very elegant, and the use of the light and the color and certain pieces of clothing to point out or to highlight a character. I love that. So it was by the time I was discovering what an aesthetic was, a good one done actually, and I fell in love with the vibe that quote and that aesthetic actually gave me or sent my way. I love the vibes of that, and it was in the same tweet that this, which was under a different project name, was actually revealed the proper title, the original title, which is the one that you have here. That if my poor translator skills allow me, it would be in English something like Even If It Rains Fire. And I started tweeting this author, explaining to her like, whoa, your name and your publishing story is unknown to me, but I fell in love with the idea that it's behind this project and the aesthetic and the quote that you just shared. And if you don't mind, I would love to follow you and see what else you have in mind. And during the next weeks, the cover was slowly revealed, and I remember that she was tweeting about this book without giving any spoilers away, and I started reading her tweets and her interaction with other people, and even though she's known within the YA genre, I wasn't that aware, and I love how Beatriz, she makes the readers, she makes them feel important and valid, and they have genuine conversations as if they were friends from years. And I remember that I love that vibe, and I fell in love with the story, even though I don't know what it's about. I didn't know what it's about, and I know that it's going to be important and heartbreaking, but I'm here for it. And this is basically a blind date with a book. But I love the serendipity of this story, of how I got to know Bea and how I actually had the chance to know the book. In a complete separated situation, I got this, which is El Príncipe de los Prodigios by Victoria Álvarez. Maybe you remember that last year I read a book called La Ciudad de las Sombras, or The City of Shadows, written by the same author. This is the sequel to that book. This is the story of Helena Lennox, the daughter of two important archaeologists that by the time the second book arrives, they have to go to Italy. And I don't know anything else. Again, this is a book only published in Spanish, though I hope that one day it's translated into other languages, because I feel that you should know this author. This is by now my favorite author. I have the majority of her books, but I've only read three books by now, but I have all of them. But well, I have still one missing though. But what I love the most about this author is that she writes historical fiction, fantasy historical fiction, or paranormal historical fiction, if you wanted to call it like that, but always set in a different time period than ours. And what I love about it is, even though this is more YA marketed, she has managed to draw young adults into a originally thought more complex territory of historical fiction. I'm not saying that historical fiction is not for teens. Of course, it is for everyone. But there's always an idea that historical fiction or novels that are set in a historical complex, different time periods are not going to be understood by the younger readers, which is not the case. I mean, this author has proved so. First with her more kind of adult novels, and then with this, which is more YA. But it's just, it doesn't, the data and the historical facts don't overflow her stories. It's just a matter of how she treats the historical facts and how she plays with them in a way that you are engaged to know more about it, or maybe do research on your own. And I love her for that, among other elements of her storytelling. But yeah, I love this, and I think I got, well, there's a little bit of a debate regarding the cover, which is gorgeous, by the way. But there's a little bit of a debate because some of the readers got more blue kind of cover, and some of the others got more purple-ish kind of cover. I want to know, or I want to think that I got the purple side of the debate, but they were like fighting over, hold on, which kind of edition I got, because it's completely different to my friends. Or it was very funny to see it unfold, and I'm really, really into this. Finally, I have a tiny book that I want to share with you, because it's very important, and it was, I'm going to move because I have it here. Let's place Beatriz Esteban with the Lennox. And now we're going to talk about Chimamanda Ngozi Adichie. I hope you're watching this correctly, because I don't know my position really. This tiny book is very important to me, and it was a surprise that I actually got it, because I love this piece of Ngozi's work. Mainly I love it because I've encountered this speech several times in my life, 3 times by now, and it reminds me of very, very important moments of my own life and others that are very close to me. The first time I listened to this, I actually never read it. I never read this little book that I need to check because I want to do it correctly. This is The Danger of a Single Story, and this is the translated version that is called El peligro de una sola historia. The Danger of a Single Story was, at least how I consume it, a TED talk that Chimamanda Ngozi Adichie, African feminist, author and activist, did a while ago, and I encountered her TED talk while I was away from home. I was doing my Erasmus year, and I was living in England on my own with new friends and new classes that by the time I listened to this talk I wasn't very comfortable with yet. And when I listened to this story I wasn't having a great day. I remember that it was almost December, but the Christmas break wasn't there yet, and I was away from my family. I was alone in class, and I was with other classmates that basically had their luggage ready to go to London home and to visit their families that lived in the area. And I couldn't go home to visit mine, even though I miss them very dearly. And I remember that I had trouble with class, not because of the language, because by then I was quite quick picking things up and following the class, but because in England the system of teaching, it's quite different. They value a lot the participation in class more than Spanish education system does. And I remember that I got there and I'm very shy when it comes to talking in class. And I've never done a debate. I've never maintained a debate in class with topics related to the class. And I remember that when we watched this talk, this speech, which is about the importance of not a speech, a moment in history or a moment that is supposed to be told afterwards, not being capitalized by one group of people, because that means that the rest of the actors involved in this in this event are going to be erased from history. Their perspective are as valid as the main ones. And I was inspired by this because she talked about it with such passion, and she used the idea of stories as to understand that we need to be represented. All of us play a part in this bigger story that it's the world. And if you only tell one story of a multifaceted actually event, you are not telling the whole story. You're not telling the story right. And we were using that as an example to the importance of being plural as a journalist. And I remember that it wasn't a very good day, but it was the day I decided to be more spoken in class. And it was lovely, and I adore it, and I was very moved by the speech. Years later, a few months later, I arrive home, I visit my friends, and some of my closest friends, and I met in a drama school when we were teens, and we are really, really close. So when we left the drama school, we decided to create this group of theatrical experimentation where we follow up what we were doing for years in this drama school, which is creating our own plays with our own elements of. We created everything. And I remember that when I came back for the break, I was invited to the play that they were doing without me because I was living abroad, and they actually used this speech. By the time I rewatched it in the play, at the end of the play, I forgot completely about it. I forgot about Chimamanda, about what we taught, about what I felt when I first watched it. And I felt very moved that my friends and I were connected to the same speech, to the same activists, even though we were kilometers and kilometers apart. And I love the fact that we actually sit down and, well, I actually sit down as part of the audience and watch the whole play about several ways of telling Little Red Riding Hood that ended up with this speech, and I felt more connected with my friends than I already was. And now this beautiful speech comes back to me as a little book, and I hold very dearly this speech because it's been very important in a very, very happy and very transcendent part of my life. So I'm very glad. Oh, I'm close to tears now. Sorry, this wasn't going to be this way, but it's really nice how books connect you to emotions and to memories. And I really want to revisit this speech in written form this time around. Now, so I avoid crying, can you tell me what you received for Christmas, if you received any kind of book at all, or if you buy yourself a book because you felt that you needed? Tell me that in the comment section down below. See you next week. Bye.